Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I am here with my monthly recommendations. So Monthly Recommendations was a Goodreads group created by Kayla Rain and Trina from Between Chapters, and I will leave the link to the Goodreads group and to both of their channels below so you can check them out. But really the point of Monthly Recommendations is just that we get a topic and we build a list of recommendations for people based on that topic. There's no minimum number of books, no maximum number of books to recommend. So this month's theme was fantasy, and I have 8 really great fantasy books to recommend to you. I'm going to kind of break this down by age group, so I have a bit of middle grade, and then I have mostly YA, and then I have one kind of new adult to recommend. So let's just get started. Beginning down at the bottom, let's talk about my favorite middle grade fantasy. Middle grade fantasy is really mostly how I got into reading, so I have read a ton of it, but I just picked 3 to recommend, and the first of those is Dragon Rider by Cornelia Funke. Dragon Rider was kind of the beginning of my obsession with dragons. You can blame this book right here. I read it, 10 times. This is one of the only books I've listened to on audiobook, and it was really great, by the way. But this book basically follows a dragon named Fire Drake, and he is on a mission to find a place where dragons can live in peace forever because there's something threatening the home of where the dragons currently live. He also has help from a brownie, which is another mythical creature, named Sorrel, as well as a boy named Ben, and they all go together to go find this mythical place where dragons can live in peace finally. This book is a wonderful adventure story. It is lighthearted and fun, but it is also really spectacularly well written, and such a great book about dragons. And the friendship in this book between the 3 main characters, as well as a few other characters that are introduced later on, is just fantastic, and you can blame this book right here for all of my fantasy love and for my love of dragons. It's this guy's fault, so read it. The next book that I want to recommend to you is another one that I recommend this author a lot, and that is Princess Academy by Shannon Hale. This is actually the first book in a trilogy, which I just barely finished reading. But while I just barely finished the trilogy, I read Princess Academy quite a few years ago, and it has just stuck with me. So the basic plot of this first book is about a girl named Miri who lives on the mountains, and the people who live on the mountain really just excavate the mountain, and they remove all the stone and they send it down to the main kingdom. And then word comes that the prince will have to choose his wife from among the Mount Eskel girls. In preparation for that, all of the girls from Mount Eskel have to go to something called a Princess Academy so that they can learn to be proper young ladies. This book is so amazing, and I talked about this trilogy a lot recently because I loved the 3rd book so much, but this is just such a great book for girls. It's not catty, the girls don't spend the whole book fighting, it's really about girl friendships, and it's so absolutely wonderful, and it's middle grade, so it's kind of cutesy with its romance, but it is absolutely adorable, and definitely one of my favorites of all time. I recommend any Shannon Hale fantasy. Go for it. I own a ton, and there's a reason. It's because she's an amazing fantasy writer. So definitely recommend the Princess Academy trilogy. The final middle grade book that I want to recommend is Fablehaven by Brandon Mull. This is a middle grade series that I devoured when I was younger. And basically this series follows siblings Kendra and Seth, and they go to stay with their grandparents, but what they don't know about their grandparents is that they are the current caretakers of a sanctuary for mythical creatures called Fablehaven, and they've never known this because they didn't really know their grandparents, but once they're there, they are thrust into a lot of adventure and really dangerous elements because there are all of these amazing creatures on or in Fablehaven. This is a wonderful series. There are 5 books total, and there are so many excellent elements in all of them, and it's just a really fantastic series. It's fun, but it is definitely well written, and there is going to be a new series based off of Fablehaven. I'm not exactly sure what the deal is with that, but Brandon Mull is writing a new series kind of based around this world, so you can also look forward to that along with the 5 great books in the Fablehaven series. Next up, I want to talk about some young adult paranormal fantasy, and I have 2 books to recommend, or rather 2 series to recommend under this heading. The first of which is the Wolves of Mercy Falls series by Maggie Stiefvater. The first book is Shiver, and then there are 3 other books. I have not read the 4th book, Sinner, but I have read the original 3, and they are really, really great. So this series is sometimes not loved very much, but it is it's just a series that I really love and that I really enjoyed when I read it. This book follows werewolves, but in this world, werewolves, they're controlled by the changing of the weather, so when it's cold is when they turn, so in the summer they can be human, and in the winter they can't be human anymore. And one of these people is in love with a girl named Grace. And so it's just about their romance, as well as the fact that as time goes on, there's less and less chance that they can be together as it gets colder and colder. So this is just, it's a really good series. People give Maggie Stiefvater a lot more credit for the Scorpio races and the Raven Cycle, which I'm sure are fantastic, but this is just such a well-written series, and I think that it still shows her writing style, and I still really enjoy it, so I still really recommend The Wolves of Mercy Falls. The next one that I want to recommend is the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy by Laini Taylor. I just finished up this series last month, and really enjoyed it. So this series is sort of difficult to describe without spoiling too much, but basically it follows angels as well as a demon kind of race called Chimera, and it is those 2 races are at war, and then it follows our main character, Karu, who is human but seems to know the Chimera somehow, and it's really beautifully written, and I just really loved the way this book was written. It's lyrical and so easy to read, but I think that you get so much out of it. It's got a really action-packed storyline, really interesting characters. Karu's best friend Zuzu is one of my favorite side characters ever. I think she's absolutely amazing, and so I definitely also recommend this paranormal series. The next couple of books I want to recommend are just young adult fantasy, but I absolutely love both of them. The first of which is The Sea of Trolls by Nancy Farmer. This is another standby author for me. Nancy Farmer is amazing, and I have read many of her books, and they're all just fantastically well written. This book takes place in the year 793 AD, I believe, and is fantastic. It follows 11-year-old Jack and his sister Lucy when they are enslaved to Olaf Onebrow aboard a ship and go on many adventures that are just wonderful and fantastic, and this is an incredibly well-written book. I listened to it on audiobook originally when I was a kid, but is fantastically written overall, and there are 2 other books in this series which I have not read, but there you go. This is a very, very well-written fantasy that has such an interesting time setting, and it's just really fun to read. The next book that I want to recommend is East by Edith Pitou. This is a retelling of East of the Sun and West of the Moon, which is a Norwegian folk tale, and is beautiful. This is one of the most beautifully written books that I've ever read. It is amazing as a retelling. It is amazing just in terms of fantasy in general. The setting of this book is beautiful and descriptive, and the romance in this book is beautiful, and so if you're looking for retelling fantasy and just some beautiful prose, East is your book. The final book that I want to recommend to you, people can't really agree whether it is young adult, new adult, adult fantasy. I would put it somewhere in new adult to adult fantasy. I think that it is slightly above young adult, and that is The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. This is the first book in what is sure to be an incredible trilogy. The final book should be coming out this year, I think. This book follows our main character, Kelsey, who is 19. She has been raised on the outskirts of the kingdom, but now that she's reached 19, she has to return and take her place on the throne as queen. But a lot of really dangerous threats are out there, and there's no guarantee she's even going to make it to the throne before she is killed, and there are a lot of other issues to her finally being able to become a good ruler. This is a fantastic book, and it follows a lot of the more political elements of fantasy, and Kelsey as a queen, which is really interesting. This does have a very different setting in that it is fantasy, but it is set in our distant future. So it's like a regressed society, and every now and then there will be mentions of things in our time, but that is very much it's very much set up as a kind of medieval world, just in the future, which is very interesting. Kelsey is a fantastic main character, one of my favorites, and this also has a really excellent side cast of characters that makes this book so much fun to read, and I desperately need to read the second one, and will be doing so in the next couple of months. I cannot wait. I've heard it's even better than the first one. So there you go. Those are my fantasy recommendations. I tried to get a little bit of everything in there for people who don't love fantasy and for people who love middle grade fantasy. I hope that I found something for you to go and check out. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!